Here's my first question, Rob, and it wasn't the question I was intending to start with, but the main thing, as someone who can be like a little bit absolutely not religious at all, is the Bible true? Or is it a myth that points to something more true than literally true?
Yes.
So it's both? Because, to put it another way, Joseph Campbell, Joey Cams, says, first of all, he says that you should read other religions because you'll read them without the burden of literal truth. So you might actually get it. But unfortunately, I was raised with thinking that Jesus of Nazareth was a real person, virgin birth, sinless life, physical death and resurrection, and that's, where we find our salvation. Now, Joey Cams comes along, and he says that the story is rather to tell us that we're all to mirror that example, that you are to die to yourself and be resurrected to your own divinity. So, is it a myth? Are you down with myth? Are you down with Joey Cams?
Yes. Now, there's actually multiple kinds of language, and this is the problem. And this is why, especially religious conservative Christians have really made a mess of the Bible. The people who talk about the Bible have made the biggest mess of it. And here I think is why. There's different kinds of language. So there is literal language. The Greeks call it logos language. When you go to get your car repaired, you don't need the person to say to you, we took apart your carburetor and it's in a bad mood. You need them to tell you part X94 is broken and that part is on order, correct? So there is very literal, factual, did it happen or not language. It's how you build hospitals, it's how you fly planes, it's how you put 10,000 songs in your pocket. Precise as possible, literal, descriptive, definitive language. Then there is other kinds of language. If you ask me why I love my wife, Kristen, and I said, because she's 5'7", she was a psych major, drove a Honda, and she's from Arizona. You would say that's an odd relationship he has with his wife. But if you ask me, why do you love your wife? And I said, because when I fell in love with Kristen, it was like I found my other half. You all go, okay, now that sounds like something. Now, did I find my other half? Was I half Rob until I met her? If you take that literally, it's absurd. It's not literally true. It's more than literally true. And what happened is a whole generation of religious people were taught that literal truth is the highest form of truth. And if that's the case, then you miss out. The Bible is this unbelievably rich library of stories, mostly written in this other kind of language. The Greeks called it mythos language, which is the language of the heart. It's language of love, lust, suffering, loss, confusion, despair, euphoria. Basically, it's beautiful language actually talking about your divine experiences of life. Makes sense? And what happens when you argue with the other? Now, the problem is a lot of people get excited about that, and then they chuck out all the literal stuff, right? And like none of it ever happened. But the power to me is, like when you're going to talk about the Bible, the power to me is stories about actual people who had transcendent experiences. If none of it happened, then we're all kind of hosed, correct? But if in these stories you hear about people having these experiences of hope, forgiveness, grace, redemption, healing. Anybody here need some healing? The power of not putting it in those categories and letting it be all of those categories is you are now free to actually have an experience.
Acclaimed author, Rob Bell.